Good evening, everybody. If anybody's joining us again, it's nice to see y'all again. I'm joined tonight by Steve Moutria. If you want to see a polished presentation in the future with scriptures and everything, this will be up on his channel in a few days. He likes to go through and put in slides and everything. I'm not really good at editing videos, so this just goes up live. But anyway, Steve, thanks for joining me again. And tonight, everybody, we're going to talk about the ramifications, the effects of if and when a third temple is built, and even without a temple, what Scripture has to say about if and or when Judah decides to reinstitute sacrifices in this age before Yeshua returns. And I'm emphasizing before Yeshua returns because I don't know your position, Steve, but as far as what happens after Yeshua returns, I don't think we're going to be having any discussions or midrash about it. It's going to be yes, King, yes, sir, and we're going to do. And there might be a lot of Christians in the kingdom that go, but you know, but you're the sacrifice, Yeshua. I think they're going to get educated, or the other side is going, you nilly willies, that was allegorical and symbolic. There's not going to be any sacrifices. I don't get into Ezekiel 40-48 future age after the king is on the throne. Heavy debates, but this topic is for this age, and it's still sort of academic right now. But that could change, I believe, in a few months. And possibly this year is really the first year I ever thought things really, really might start getting kicked off. So
you're talking in a way of sacrifices, you mean?
I'm talking about as far as an altar being erected, a red heifer. You know, I was looking, potentially for a red heifer in 2023, 24. Unless it happens secretly, I don't know of it. So
yeah, I don't think that would be something they have to have happen secretly. That would be something they would boast, I would think, but I'm with you. It's there. I never had to say per se, like, I think it's going to happen now, but I have always had this anticipation of it's got to be coming soon, now defined soon. Everyone talks about that, I guess for me, I'll have to confess, I am really watching this year. There's last time we talked, it's like there's so many things pointing to this year in different perspectives. Excuse me. And so I am watching like yourself. And for me, the topic of rebuilding the temple, it's not slowing down. It's not dying down at all. It's like it may pick up speed. You'll see it in the news and then nothing. But it's always in the background. If you're in Israel, it's always there being discussed. It's always in the background. And it's always been rumored and this, that, and the other. So for us to say that it's not going to happen, to me, that's going to be a topic that will hit forefront. Now, you know me. I'm a staunch believer that the Ark of the Covenant will come back out. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Now, I will also say that it's obviously not needed to get sacrifices started or to rebuild the temple. But I do believe when it comes out, it will supercharge the whole fire of wanting to get these things going again.
Yeah, and as far as, timing, I do believe that, Trump was selected as our president. Ultimately, he was Yah's chosen one. It is God that appoints kings and sovereigns. So,
that's true.
But anytime anybody talks about Trump being the chosen one, I go, yeah, we got to put Obama in the mix and Clinton and Jimmy Carter, and go ahead and throw Hitler and Stalin in the mix as well. But I do believe Trump being the current president, his son-in-law, and the relationship with the Saudi crown prince and the former Abraham Accords. And I was just I didn't verify it or fact check it, but just reading that some of those that are going to be in his cabinet are coming out strongly saying this land belongs to the Jews. There's really not, where they might even be taking a two-state solution off the table. And I can see Israel, the nation state of Israel, and the religious leaders in Israel being emboldened enough now that Trump is in office, and in light of the shellacking they've just put on the terrorist organizations and everything, being emboldened enough, and now is the time. And I don't think it's coincidence that it's been about 2 days since Yeshua ascended and returned to his place, that all of this is converging and aligning. And so that's why I believe it's a topic that's not really academic anymore, because we could see it happening, if not this year, within the next 2-ish, 3-ish, 4-ish years. I believe probably by the time Trump leaves office, I believe that there will be a tabernacle, there will be sacrifices. But again, that's just a belief. That is not thus saith the Lord or anything. I haven't had a vision or a prophecy.
Right. I'm with you. No, it's hard not to have that mentality because of all we've been seeing, coming to be. And I don't know if you've noticed in the news, I just saw, I think it was late last night or something, or it was today even, I can't remember now, but that Israel is now really storming the West Bank, which shouldn't be called the West Bank because it's east of Jerusalem. It's part of Jerusalem, but that's a different story. But no, I've seen where they are really ramping up, trying to, do something in the West Bank area, and for me, that is huge news, because with where I'm at regarding the Ark of the Covenant, and being that it's in the Qumran area, that's something they're going to want to control. They're going to want to control most of that whole area. So whenever it does come out, they've got the rightful claim to it. So what we're seeing is it's all ramping up. Now, everything's ramping up, and it has been for how many years? So what's that mean? But when I look at scripture, we were discussing Isaiah 66 before, and we wanted to go into that today. I know Isaiah 66, for me, it takes us from the beginning to the end of everything. And it discusses them wanting to have the not tabernacle, but the actual temple. And for me, that starts, like I said earlier, it starts with the Ark of the Covenant coming out. So with what they're doing over there in the West Bank right now, my eyes are definitely up, pointing that direction, going, okay, what are they doing? Because now it can take months, it may take weeks, I don't know, but it's all leading up to something with the Ark of the Covenant, in my opinion.
Well, and with your permission, I'll just read Isaiah 66, and then we can kind of discuss it and dissect it. I think this is something we could do some exegesis and digging down into it, as far as, and then looking at other passages, some of the things in the Gospels where I believe this relates to it. Judah rejecting Yeshua, being blind and being deaf, being a stumbling block. So verse 1 starts out, this is what Yah says: heaven is my throne and the earth is the footstool for my feet. Where then is a house you could build for me, and where is a place that I may rest? For my hand has made all these things, so all these things came into being, declares Yah. But I will look to this one, at one who is humble and contrite in spirit, and who trembles at my word.
Amen.
I want to stop right there, because I've heard so many, and I get it. I understand why Judah has been blinded. I understand they're going to be blinded until the very end.
Mm-hmm.
But Yeshua is the Word made flesh. Judah, as a corporate house and as a religion, does not tremble at the word of Yah. They do not. And so I get it. They're deceived. They're mistaken. But I've heard some of my Messianic Jewish brothers and sisters, I've heard so-called Torah teachers that will argue that it's their intent. They really want to build this temple, and they're doing what they believe is right. And again, I'm not questioning their motives or their intentions of well-meaning. Again, like, there's a difference between a lot of Orthodox rabbis who are very graceful and kind and loving, and some of the Hasidics who are just mean and nasty and straight up racist. I mean, they consider anybody not Jewish to be less than pond scum. So again, there are sects and denominations within Judaism. What's your thought about that, as far as whether or not Judah, who's obviously, if the temple is built, they're going to be the ones doing it primarily?
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Well, and to your point regarding, you see the good kind-hearted, and then that's in every crowd. Let's make that known. I've seen the good and bad in every crowd, and I do mean every crowd. All right, so that's not just on this group or that group. It's on everybody, and it's up to us to be the light for that purpose. Now, in what you were saying though regarding Judah, yeah, it's definitely going to be them to bring it out and to want to build it, because that's their heritage, if you will, and so. I'm sorry, what was your question again?
It's in verse 2 when it talks about, sort of the justification that Messianics will say that, with Judah building this temple, and then following up, we'll get to verse 3 in a minute. But
yeah,
if and when they do these offerings, they're not really going to be abominations, because it's their heart that matters. In other words, but my point is, does Judah really tremble at his word?
Yeah. Well, if I can even say, as you're saying that, this is what I see as a verse 2 is even giving a differentiation. It says, has not my, just first, you see the first part, the one, heaven is my throne. Where is this house you're going to build me? All right. And then, has not my hands made all these things? Okay. Then he says, this is the one I esteem, meaning not the one who wants to build my house, but the one who was humble and contrite in spirit. That's who I look after. That's who I lift up. That's who my eyes are attentive to. And so right there, he's showing a distinction between two different people. Okay. Two different categories of people, I should say, because you can be in either group. It doesn't matter your heritage, whatever. You can be in either one of them. And so for me, this is a differentiation. Yeshua or Yahweh is showing, you've got these people and you've got these people, my people, but one who was seeking my ways and one who was wanting to just seek the things of my ways, if I can say it that way, maybe.
And again, there's almost sarcasm dripping from verse 1. Who in the world do you think you are, being vain enough to even think you can build me a temple that will house me?
Right.
I created everything, and yet that's exactly what Judah is planning on doing. I mean, they have the Temple Institute. We have Messianic Jews in the community, and others that are Torah teachers that are teaching that the temple must be rebuilt before Yeshua could even return. Right. And I find that to be nonsensical. But we'll get into, okay, so this is verse 3, and this is the one that, my co-host, Dr. Doug Hamp, who is a Hebrew scholar, and he's, he leads a Messianic Jewish congregation, and he is of the opinion that most, he's not a dispensationalist anymore, but he still has that understanding, as most do within Messianic Judaism, or even a lot that do that have come into this understanding that the temple must be rebuilt, the sacrifices will be acceptable, and the abomination of desolation is only when a future antichrist comes in and puts an end to the sacrifices. And in the thumbnail, I put up the little picture of Antiochus Epiphanes, slaughtering the pig. And so that's what everybody's looking for. In other words, they're looking for a future, I'm going to air quote, antichrist, who will come in, stop these sacrifices of Judah, and then he will sit, in the holy place, the holy topos, and declare himself to be God. And so they're looking at this future abomination putting an end to these sacrifices. And again, I understand where they get it from, because I was born and raised reading Walvoord and Pentecost and Hal Lindsey and dispensationalism. And so I get it. But, we've just read verse 1 and 2. Here's what scripture actually says. But the one who slaughters an ox is like one who kills a person. The one who sacrifices a lamb is like one who breaks a dog's neck. One who offers a grain offering is like one who offers pig's blood. One who burns incense is like one who blesses an idol, as they have chosen their own ways, and their soul delight in their abominations.
Right there says it.
And that is the same exact Hebrew word that Daniel uses in both Daniel 9 and Daniel 12. It is the same exact Hebrew word. And so when I ask, obviously I'm preaching to the choir right now, But when I ask, how do you get around this? How are you turning a future temple and future offerings and sacrifices into being holy and acceptable in light of Isaiah 66? Because if they are in this understanding, Steve, and they do understand now that swine are abominations, later on down the road, in this chapter, we see Yeshua returning and not being too pleased with people eating mice and swine. I mean, yes. And so they see that, but it's like they refuse to see this. And maybe it's because, again, I think a lot of it has to do with the educational background, what you've been taught, along the way, or maybe even who your current teachers are. And again, I love Jewish people. I think Christianity has been a horrible witness in making Judah, the natural branches, jealous. I don't blame Jews for rejecting the Roman Jesus.
Amen.
But it still doesn't mean that we should support what his word calls abominations.
Agreed. Yeah.
So any additional thoughts or?
Everything you said there, I'm in 100% agreement. It's like the whole sacrificial system in itself is the abomination. And it shows it. And I have been pondering different thoughts, and we've discussed it a couple of times here and there, what makes their sacrifices an abomination. Obviously, you can go, well, it's not going to be the priesthood that's selected by Yeshua. Okay, I agree. Very possible that could be the reason. Right now, what I am leaning towards just as much, if not even more so, it's going to be the altar upon which they sacrifice these animals. Because I went back and did some research. It was back in 2018 when the Temple Institute was all excited. They made this big to-do about how they now have made an altar that will go for and be placed in the new temple when it's made. It's already built. And it's when I looked at it, I forget, I think it was a Jerusalem Post who posted it in 18. And it was around, I'm going to say 5.5 foot tall and a good 8x8. Okay. And then it had the ramp and stuff. And I'm looking at it, I'm going, oh my gosh, the second I saw it, I'm screaming, no.
What part about no cut stones is so hard to understand?
That's my point. It was a perfectly cut, made, all this, looked beautiful. But and if I may, this is Exodus chapter 20. It says, if you make an altar of stones for me, do not build it with dressed stones or cut stones, pending the interpretation, for you will defile it if you use a tool on it. Okay, so if you defile the altar, guess what? Every single sacrifice being done on that altar will be defiled. It's like, it's all an abomination. So I'm telling you, if they come out and use that altar that they have been proclaiming they're going to do, that in itself makes every single sacrifice they do an abomination to Yahweh. He will not accept one.
I would say not to mention the same issue with Hanukkah and when the Maccabees decided we don't really care what Scripture says, we're going to install ourselves as the high priest.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think even the most committed Jew could actually say that anybody they choose is a descendant of Aaron and Zadok.
Well, you're going to have them saying they did their DNA tests and stuff. And for me, when I hear someone talk about DNA stuff, where's the rule of thumb? Where is the line saying we know beyond the shadow of doubt this is the DNA for a Jew, or this is the DNA? It's so obscured. I have seen all the reasons. I've heard lots of people discussing it. I mean, scholarly people discussing it, and I'm going, I walked away completely unconvinced.
Well, and even then, it's not just being of the line of Judah. It's because, again, we're not even talking about the tribe of Judah. We're talking about the tribe of Levi, and we're talking about the Aaronic line, and we're narrowing it down to the Zadokian line.
Exactly.
And so you've got now since the time of the Maccabees, you have 2,150 plus years,
right?
Since there's actually been a Zadokian high priest.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're going to tell me they're just going to pick somebody and they know that this person is a legitimate descendant of the appropriate biblical line. And I'm sorry, if you're going over there placing your trust in that, my concern is people are going to go over there 3 times a year, because again, if you believe this, and if you believe that this is going to be a legitimate priesthood established according to the Torah, then you better get your butt over there 3 times a year.
Right. If you believe that, if you believe that's what it's supposed to be, that they are the legitimate priesthood, or, I mean, but again, I'm not back to the altar. No, me neither. I don't. It's what we just read here, and Isaiah shows it's not acceptable unto him. I don't know what anyone does with these verses, who believes that these things are going to be good, meaning the sacrifices. I struggle with that.
The only responses I've really received is you're not interpreting those right, or those really don't apply. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. This whole chapter is about the return of Yeshua.
It is.
And we just read in chapter 65 is more looking forward, but this is dealing with his return. And it just so happens that Yah inspires the prophet to mention about, who in the world do you think you are, building me a house? And it just so happens that Judah, is back in the land since 1948. And it just so happened events are aligning and converging, and they're really getting serious about building a temple now.
Right.
And so I've yet to hear a good explanation. I mean, they're always going to go back to Daniel and say, well, see this, but they don't want to address Isaiah 66 when they're dealing with this issue. They're just focusing on the Daniel prophecies.
Right. Well, and at this point, this is when you're going to have a lot of Christians will say, well, it doesn't really matter because the sacrifices are all done away with from Yeshua, like we mentioned earlier. And that's where a lot of people are not understanding Yeshua's sacrifice. Yeshua's sacrifice it's a Passover sacrifice. Passover is not a sin sacrifice. And we know Yeshua himself said in Mathew 5, 16, 17, 18, somewhere around there, not one jot or tittle will pass from anything from the law until all is done. So knowing that alone, sacrifices are going to come back under his ruleship, under his kingdom. So it's not that it's not going to happen. Is this right now? It's not going to be done by the right people, and it's going to be done wrong.
It's not going to be him setting up his Zadokian priesthood.
Correct.
And so, and again, I won't do a throwdown with a Presbyterian or someone like that. That's like, oh my goodness, you would even think there's going to be, well, they don't even believe in a millennium. I'm like, why are we even talking about this? We're wasting our time. According to you, we're already in the kingdom, and
right. Well, and for those who may be questioning, regarding Yeshua's sacrifice, I do have 2 teachings that I detail it if they want to go into it. It's called his sacrifice and also the eternal covenant. For those who are struggling with the thought that, sacrifices are going to come back, you have to understand what Yeshua's sacrifice was, and those 2 teachings can help with that.
Well, and I'll continue with verse 4. So this is after it's mentioning these sacrifices and even a grain offering being like pig's blood. So I will choose their punishments and bring on them what they dread, because I called, but no one answered. I spoke, but they did not listen. Instead, they did evil in my sight and chose that in which I did not delight. And so again, that's what, as I've been, just praying over this verse, really for the past 21 days and doing a little prayer and fasting on this and some other, personal issues, etc. But I spoke, but they did not listen. And you see that in other places in the prophets about not having ears to hear, and Yeshua telling, you are not my sheep. My sheep hear my voice. The religious leaders of Judaism at that time had no ears to hear. Just like right now, to be in the faith called Judaism, you have no ears to hear the voice of the master. You have no voice to hear the shepherd. His sheep hear his voice.
Right.
Those that deny Yeshua although again, I'm not criticizing their commitment, their love for the Torah. Sadly, they bring in too much Talmud into it. That's not the issue, but they don't have ears to hear. And so again, that's just another example. It's like this is screaming out. And this would not just be towards Judah, but on this issue, most over in the Roman branch of the two sisters, and they're not really gung ho about offering sacrifices. So this
two sisters you're talking regarding Ezekiel 23.
When I say two sisters, I'm talking about Judah, Ezekiel 23, and the two.
Sorry, I said Ezekiel 23, right?
Yeah, the two harlot sisters. And again, the olive pit and the wild olive pit has not fallen far from the olive pit trees as far as the practice of either religion. And so that's why I like to be equal opportunity. That way, if anybody calls me anti-Semitic, I'm like, I don't hate Catholics either. I don't hate Baptists. I don't hate the protesting daughters denominations. I don't hate the people. But from a religious standpoint, I found that if you throw stones at both houses, you just irritate everybody. But then, but then you can't get accused, even though I'm still accused of being anti-Semitic, for saying that Judaism is an anti-Messiah religion. It has it cannot and does not hear the voice of the shepherd.
But see, they're going to respond by saying, "We believe in a Messiah. He just hasn't come yet." So that will be their rebuttal. Don't forget.
Right.
Go ahead.
So anyway, you have anything to add on verse 4?
Yeah, where it says they did evil in my sight. That word evil in the Hebrew is ra. Okay, right. It's the exact same word that was used by Aaron. I have the verse here. Let me see if I can find it real quick. Whenever they did the golden calf, Moses was all upset, and then Aaron responds, "Do not be angry, my Lord," talking to Moses. Aaron answered, "You know how prone these people are to evil." The exact same word, ra, And so I found that very interesting. And so they did evil, ra, in my sight, in verse 4. So, yeah.
Well, and shows that in which I did not delight. And again, you can put these when you do your teaching, and you can add it, but you could probably find many, many verses about sacrifices and offerings I do not delight.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, the whole point, though, I think that goes right back to what they're supposed to make the altar like, uncut stone, but they chose what displeased me. They wanted to have a beautiful altar like all the other gods do.
All right, so I'm gonna go ahead with verse 5. Hear the word of Yah, you who tremble at his word. Your brothers who hate you, who exclude you on account of my name, have said, let Yah be glorified, so that we may see your joy, but they will be put to shame.
Hit pause.
All right.
So look at where it says, hear the word of Yahweh, you who tremble at his word. That word is devar, his commands. So now he's talking to the people who obey. Okay. And you can go into Deuteronomy. In fact, it's Deuteronomy 5:5. It says, at that time I stood, this is Moses talking. At that time I stood between Yahweh and you to declare the word, devar, same word, of Yahweh, because you were afraid of the fire and did not go up the mountain. So here he is talking about devar, that's the commands. And so what's in verse 5 you just said? Those who tremble at his commands. There's so much there. I like the part where it says, your brothers who hate you exclude you because of my name.
Ooh.
Man, if that doesn't, I'm telling you now, I'm going to tell you something. We went to Israel back in 2019, and they knew, the mere fact that we're a Gentile, we're in seats. There were several who were very upset at us. They no, you're not supposed to do that. They exclude you. This is the thing. Don't think a lot of people are grabbing a hold of it just yet. I made some teachings on it. One, namely the beware of the Noahide laws. They have specifically made these Noahide laws for what? All Gentiles. You guys don't need to worry about following the Torah. You just follow these Noahide laws. Those are for you. They're jealous of us. They exclude us from wanting to obey the Torah.
Well,
They don't want us to have anything to do with it. Go ahead.
well, I sat down. No, I'll share a personal experience too. I sat down on the plane and I actually prayed because there were tons of Orthodox and because I was headed over for Sukkot, as were they. And I prayed that I prayed for a divine appointment with a Jewish person that spoke English. And there was a young man up from South America attending the biggest yeshiva, Hasidic yeshiva up in New Jersey somewhere. And so we started talking. And he said, and he says, "Why are you going to Israel?" I said, "I'm going for Sukkot." He said, "You don't have to go to Sukkot." I said, "No, I believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob too." And he goes, "But you're a Gentile." I said, "No, I'm not. I'm a citizen of Israel. I'm and so, but you could tell he was confused and you could tell he knew the Talmud very well. He did not know the Torah or the prophets very well. Because I was like going to Ezekiel 37. I'm like, yeah, I'm this stick of Joseph over here,
Yeah.
And this is, the Torah, does not the Torah say that it's for everybody and all nations? It's not just for Jews. Can you show me, in scripture where it says it's just for the Jews? I mean, obviously he could not. And so, whether a seed was planted or not, I was very nice to him and respectful to him. Everybody that's heard that story says, "Oh my God, sitting by you for 3 hours." But we were having a good conversation, but I would not let him tell me that I should not keep Shabbat or that I should not try to honor the Moedim.
Right.
And I said, "Well, I don't follow your kosher laws, but I don't eat pork and I don't eat shellfish and things like that." I said, "I do everything that I'm able to do that's commanded in the Torah." And Amen. I said, "And I'm a follower of Yeshua." And he said, "Yesu." I said, "I'm kind of being really respectful toward you right now. I actually know what you're doing. Could you kindly not do that?" So he tried to get in his subtle digs, but that there are other passages and where it talks about how Judah is excluding its brother, and they still do that. There's that anytime theology is based on DNA, it's pure Ra, it's pure evil. It's never what Yah intended, never what he intended for his people and his covenant people.
Right. So, well, and if I don't have the verse in front of me, but it's Yeshua when it's the Pharisees, I'm pretty sure, and they said, Abraham was our father. And then Yeshua says, if Abraham was your father, you would do what Abraham did. So the point being is, though, they were from the lineage, but he's showing forth the element of, dude, it's not just your lineage. It's all about how you walk in his ways. And that's what I don't think they're missing it completely today, just like they were back then. They thought as long as they've got the lineage DNA, they're good. And in the eyes of Yahweh, it's all about the walk, following the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, as you mentioned earlier.
Well, and in this day and age, if I just paraphrase Yeshua to where I'm paraphrasing it, I would be labeled an anti-Semite.
Oh, tell me. I'm going to tell you right now, that is coming. The whole anti-Semitic law, all these anti-Semitic laws that you're seeing, even in America, it's all being set up. And I'm very concerned because a lot of people are not seeing this. It's starting to take control. And there will be a time when something happened, an event happens here, whatever, and the switch is flipped and it just goes south real quick. Because like you just said, we will be considered anti-Semitic. The mere fact of us wanting to follow Torah will be anti-Semitic. Why? Because in their eyes, we're mocking them. And that's us making fun. That's degrading them. That's their law, not ours. That's what it's going to be. And in fact, listen to what I have here. I got a verse that goes right with what we're talking about right now. Because it's in Revelation. It talks about the enemy pursues those who do what? Pursue the name of Yeshua and the commands. I got it here. It's Revelation 12:17. Then the dragon was enraged at the woman and went off to make war against the rest of her offspring. Two things here. Those who obey the commandments and hold to the testimony of Jesus, Yeshua. So anti-Semitic laws, I'm telling you, they are going to dominate very soon. And they will be the law of the land before we know it.
Well, and sadly, again, we talked about a little bit before we came on about there was very little balance. there's like, for instance, something that I would say, if I just paraphrase what Yeshua said about about Judaism, let's just call a spade a spade. If I paraphrase what he was saying, because that's essentially that ended up becoming what we know as Talmudic Judaism. So if I just am anti-Judaism, but don't hate Jewish people, it's still considered anti-Semitic, because that's the way a lot of people have been programmed. Then on the other side, what's happening is this backlash from the leftists. It's weird. You have queer supporting Hamas. I mean, they would throw them off a building. If that doesn't show you how little people think this day and age. But so they're hating on Israel just because they're Jews. And again, I don't approve of everything the nation state of Israel has done in this war. But to some people, not to approve of everything is considered anti-Semitic or anti-Israel. I'm very much in favor of the nation state of Israel being able to protect itself.
Absolutely.
From terrorist threats. I'm very much against somebody hating a person because they have a kippah on their head, because they're Jewish and wearing tzitzits, and just hating them because of what they are. But I can be anti-Muslim, anti-Catholic, anti-Buddhist. But for some reason, you can't be anti-Judaism without getting inappropriately labeled as, sort of like the Islamophobia stuff, which you see that too. It's like, look, no, I'm not scared of Islamic people. Most Muslims are very peaceful. The ones that I've met personally, very kind people, and I've met them in Israel and here locally. They don't concern me at all as far as jihad, but it doesn't mean I support their religion and their faith.
Right.
And I'm not, I don't hate Muslim people. But that's just, I see what you're saying coming. It's especially with our current president, that this Christian nationalism thing, and Christian nationalism kind of dovetails in with Christian Zionism. And that's what I fear could spring itself on an unwitting public that's been led down the path. So that's my concern anyway.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Well, and the next part of the verse, I found it interesting too, because it says, can you read it again? Can you go ahead and just read verse 5 again for us?
Yeah. Hear the word of Yahweh, you who tremble at his word. Your brothers who hate you, who exclude you on account of my name, have said, let Yahweh be glorified, so that we may see your joy, but they will be put to shame. So
here's the thing. All this while they're displaying their hate, they're saying, let Yahweh be glorified. So there's to me, that is huge. It shows what will be taking place in Israel by way of sacrifices, by way of their giving praise to God. In fact, if I may even add this in, it's not my notes, but we hear lots of talk regarding when they say peace and safety, sudden destruction comes upon them. And everyone's talking about it's a peace treaty, it's this and the other. Allow me to present something slightly different. Not saying it's right, but what if the peace and safety is going to be being declared when they start their sacrifices? When they can do that, they're going to say, okay, it's all good now. We're now going to be walking in what? The Torah, where blessings will flow. So peace and safety, because we're walking. I can see that. And then once that gets started, things go south real quick, for everybody.
And with the backing of a very pro-Israel president like Trump and the administration he's bringing in, I mean, again, it's that's why I believe this one reason that he was selected by Yah. I mean, again, I believe presidents are selected, not elected anyway, but the head puppets just think they're in control. Yah lets them do their little games and their little machinations. I mean, it's like, everybody kind of in the Hebrew roots camp that go, well, it was the Rothschilds and the evil Jewish bankers that did all this. I'm like, guys, you guys give Satan and his minions way too much credit.
Right.
Who do you think ultimately allowed you to return to the land in unbelief so that Zechariah 12 can be fulfilled?
Right. I
mean, stop. I love to get in this conspiracy pool and swim around and everything, but I'm always trying to look at it through the lens of, He's allowing these things. He's allowing AI to develop. He's allowing the alien disclosure. He's allowing central digital currency to come into place. It's all part of his plan.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yep. No, I'm right there with you. And going back into the element of how, Yahweh, he is the one who selects whatever leader's in office. And it's all for a purpose, ultimately. And going back to the element, if I can say this, because it kind of goes in with the Noahide laws and how they will be ushered in here in law. In fact, in my teaching, I discuss how it's already been accepted through the U.S. Congress and what have you. But it's John 16, verse 1. I'm going to read it for us. It says, all this I have told you so that you will not go astray. They will put you out of the synagogue. In fact, a time is coming when anyone who kills you will think he is offering service to God. They will do such things because they have not known the Father or me. So there's going to come a time when believers will be killed, and those who are doing the killing will think they're doing Yahweh a service. So it goes back to where this anti-Semitic thing is concerning to me, because it's going to gain momentum, and it's going to gain momentum fast. I am very concerned over the next few years. It may even become faster than that. I don't know. But from what I'm seeing, and with leadership that's all being put in place, it's all getting set up.
Again, I don't have a crystal ball, and I'm not a prophet, and I haven't had a dream or a vision, but kind of the last verse before things get really cool, though, verse 6, a sound of uproar from the city, a voice from the temple, the voice of Yahweh who is dealing retribution to his enemies.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that might be when things kick off.
It's funny you say that, because I have gone back and forth on this verse. I can't make my mind up, because a lot of times when I read this, I go to Ezekiel chapter 8 and 9. It's where you see the idol of jealousy set up at the north gate, and all of a sudden immediate destruction comes upon everybody. One of the verses even says bodies flung everywhere. It literally says that. It's like, so it's a time of judgment. But in Ezekiel, it discusses that's what happens at the beginning. Okay. And then it continues on. Whereas this could also be, we're talking in verse 6 here in Isaiah 66, it could also be that which is the end of the Battle of Armageddon. I discussed this in our teaching, Armageddon and the Parousia, and also Satan's Greatest Masquerade, where the Battle of Armageddon, I believe, takes place at Mount Sinai. It's the mountain of appointed times. And then from there, Yeshua goes up, and then he saves Judah and Moab. And then from there out, this is the tents of Judah, forgive me. And then he goes up and enters into Jerusalem. And I believe this is where verse 6 could be that the closing battle of the Battle of Armageddon, if you will. Can't, prove it verbatim, but I see in Isaiah 66, it bounces around here and there at different times. And I can even show you how it bounces later on. But verse 6 has always intrigued me with that.
Yeah, and I think verse 7, 8, and 9 would be, and 10 would be a great discussion on maybe for a future topic, and how it could relate to Revelation 12.
Oh, absolutely.
And the man-child.
Mm-hmm.
So,
before I forget, I'm so sorry. I need to backtrack.
No problem.
Also in verse 6, I got a verse. I forgot I had it written down here. It's interesting how it says repaying his enemies. Okay. Yours, how did your translation say it?
Well, verse 6 says, a sound of uproar from the city, a voice from the temple, the voice of the Lord who is dealing retribution to his
retribution. Enemies. Yes. Why can you add another verse in Isaiah or Revelation for that one too? But look at Revelation 6:9. Listen to what it says. When he opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls who had been slain because of the word of God and the testimony they had maintained. Verse 10, they called out in a loud voice, how long, sovereign Lord, how holy and true, until you judge the inhabitants and of the earth and what? Avenge our blood. So it's like right here, we're talking a vengeance taking place. But then it says, verse 11, then each of them was given a white robe, and they were told to wait a little longer until the number of their fellow servants and brothers who were to be killed as they had been were completed. So this right here shows it's going to be at the end. It implies the retribution comes at the end. That's why I go back to thinking verse 6 could be the very end of it all when it's all wrapped up and said and done. That makes sense?
Yeah, well, and it kind of ties into sort of something sort of like you right now. A current pondering, not even a full understanding of how this could fit in with these next few verses, and a man-child being born prior to tribulation, prior to the woman fleeing into the wilderness, being called up to being harpazoed. I mean, the word is harpazoed to the throne, and that's where I think you and I and Tony had discussed it that one time. Tony Robinson, and I think about the only thing we might have differed on was y'all thought that you would receive the glory. You thought that the man-child would go ahead and be glorified, as a first fruits harvest. And I'm not against that. I believe they could be harpazoed like Paul was and sent back down, on a mission to lead the people, to lead the woman for those next 42 months through this time period. So.
Gotcha. Yep.
But that would be a different topic. But any other? I mean, again, it's hard for me other than the Daniel passages that I grew up reading about and looking for a future peace treaty and looking for this peace treaty would allow the Jews to rebuild their temple, to start up their sacrifices, and then whoever this person is that makes this covenant would step in and break it 3.5 years later. So
right. Well, again, my view. I'm thoroughly convinced in my heart right now that everything is cut short, to less than a year, 6 months to a year. And what I do find interesting regarding verse 7, if I can back into this, I love how it says before she goes into labor. It starts off with that. And if you look at verse 6 again, it's discussing this, great battle taking place. And this is where I'm going to say you can't just read it linear and think it's all in timing, because if we do that, think of what Yeshua said in Luke 21. In 21, he discusses many things that are coming, hard times that are coming even. But then verse 12 says this: but before all this, they will lay hands on you and persecute you. They will deliver you to the synagogues and prisons. And he continues on. So it's like he says something and he goes, but wait a minute, before all this, let's backtrack. And that's what I see happening here, even with Isaiah, meaning he's discussing the whole gamut. And then, okay, now how's it going to kick off? Before all this, here's before she goes into labor, before this kicks in, and then you see the man-child, as you mentioned. So there's so much that can be discussed in Revelation with Isaiah, but I definitely see that. Did that make sense? I feel like I kind of jumped around there.
Yeah, I put up this. Don't y'all? Something major has to happen for the Muslims to permit the tabernacle temple and the sacrifices to resume. Something that puts fear into them to be willing to permit it. I would say some of that may have already happened with sort of Hezbollah and Hamas being pretty much devastated right now. But yes, there are a lot of people right now that believe, America and Israel may get into a war with Iran, and that winning of that war could lead to this. So again, not saying that will happen.
Right. No, I'm with you. Can you put that back up? Just I want to see the.
Let me find it again. So in other words, something would have to happen to the Muslim nations, the Islamic countries, for Israel to feel like the political situation, the military situation.
Well, this is my view. This is Scott in Texas. Scott, my current thought is that they aren't going to permit it. In fact, I believe this is why we see Jerusalem being surrounded. The second that Ark of the Covenant comes out, whether they take it immediately or they just have it and then they're getting things ready. But the second that Ark of the Covenant and the tabernacle, it's buried with it, is even taken, on that mount, Temple Mount, that is when we see Jerusalem being surrounded. So to me, They don't permit it. It's the very reason why Jerusalem gets surrounded. So hopefully that makes sense.
Yeah, so essentially, yeah, from our prior discussions, you believe that when they do it, it's not like they sought permission and received it. It's when this happens, the Muslim countries are probably going to start, getting their swords ready for war.
Immediately. That's why Yeshua says, hey, if you're for your house, don't go back down. If you're out in the field, don't go back to the house. It's coming.
Well, and again, if some of the technology and the missile and the supersonic missiles that Iran supposedly has, I mean, I think it takes like 6 minutes and 66 seconds for their missile to get. We had a guy on last week, Abraham, who has looked into that, and he kind of has a similar understanding as Michael Rood and others about the prophecy in Zechariah about the scroll being a missile.
Oh yeah.
Coming from the land of Shinar. And so, and again, I don't think that's crazy.
Oh, no, me neither. I perfectly in agreement with that. I can see that easily. Yep.
My co-host on Prophecy Roundtable, who differs with us vehemently on this issue, has posited this question, which I'm going to punt to you, Steve.
Okay. Oh, Joel. Hey.
Yeah.
I got his email. Anyway. I'll get back with you, brother. Go ahead. What's the question?
So will the Judean priest offering the upcoming offerings be Tahor? Will the offerings be Tahor? Will the two witnesses be Tahor? Will the 144,000 be Tahor? If so, what will make them Tahor? So.
Okay, first let's get a proper definition so everyone understands what Tahor is. What's your definition of Tahor?
I don't know. Joel decided to throw in some Hebrewish on us. So
well, then let's let him give us his definition of it, because I don't want to answer something that would be wrong, to a different understanding.
So from talking with Joel, though, and again, I'll just give my not worth 2 cents opinion. He's sort of coming at this from an approach of the temple needing to be rebuilt, the priesthood being legitimate in order for Yeshua to return. And so, again, we obviously disagree. So I think that's where he's going with the question. To answer the question as far as Tahor, I believe the offerings are going to be abominations, Joel. And but you know that. I mean, we've had brief discussions on the prophecy roundtable about that. So I'll go with what Isaiah 66:3 says, and I don't know how it relates to the two witnesses. If they're two literal X-Men type superhuman prophets, or if they're individuals like yourself, like me, like Steve, who are the two olive trees and the two lampstands, we certainly don't need to go through a ritual cleansing process to share the truth of the testimony of Yeshua and keep his commandments, because that's really what's, I believe, the two olive trees and the two menorahs are already testifying. Not in the full power that we see in Revelation 11 with the two witnesses right now, but definitely the message, I believe, for the first time in maybe 1950 years, over the past 10, 15, 20 years, for the first time, what the initial faith handed down to the saints has been being taught and practiced, or at least tried to be taught, tried to be practiced, as opposed to the mixture that has happened over the past 1900 years. So maybe Joel will post, maybe he's still listening, he'll post it. So let's see. Yeah, here we go. Ritually pure, not physically clean, able to bring an offering and participate in the processes.
Well, none of that will happen until Yeshua comes, as far as the priesthood on earth, the temple on earth. None of that will happen until Yeshua comes and cleans house, and that'll be on the battle right at the time of the Battle of Armageddon. So, I mean, Isaiah 66 is making it clear, as far as these things are not acceptable to him. They're an abomination to him. So I can't see any other view on any of that.
Yeah, and again, that's where my current understanding right now is anything Judah establishes is not going to be righteous. It's not going to be holy. It's not going to be acceptable to Yah. I believe it's going to be like spitting in Yeshua's eye.
Well, think of it this way. forgot what teaching I discussed this in, but Yeshua, I did reference to the verse earlier. He goes, you say Abraham is our father. Then he says, if Abraham was your father, you do what Abraham did. Right after that, Yeshua responded with, Satan is your father. Whoa. I mean, whoa. Talk about anti-Semitic. And here's Yeshua the Jew. Okay. And so, but that right there is huge when he said that. So what was Yeshua? And these are the people who were over the temple, over the synagogue. If Satan is their father, what does that make that the synagogue of?
Satan.
Yeah. Okay. And so for us to think that all is good now, that the synagogue of Satan hasn't changed when they're doing the exact same thing. Okay. They're following traditions of men. All these things that they did in the first century, we're seeing it today. Anyone who claims to name a Yeshua, they're persecuted, just like in the first century. It's all the exact, everything is duplicating all. It's Ecclesiastes. There's nothing new under the sun.
Right. And again, not the people that would call every person that claims to be Jewish a fake Jew or look at them with evil intent. But again, Satan just means adversary. They are adversarial to the truth. But like when Yeshua told Peter, get behind me, Satan, he wasn't calling him the devil incarnate. He was being a Satan. He was being an adversary to the redemptive plan, which required Yeshua to go to the cross, to offer himself so that we can be redeemed. So just even that term synagogue of Satan, it would apply, you could say a mosque of Satan. You could say a church of Satan.
Right.
It's not just to the Jewish people, but I do believe there are some that claim to be Jews who they're I think it's in Romans 2. They are not true Jews. They are evil to their core. Again, I'm not naming names, but there are certainly people that would claim to be Jewish that put out so much smut in Hollywood, and so those individuals that that do have this power and this control, and that no doubt there's almost no redeeming quality in what they do in life. Yeah, that would apply for some that identify as Jewish. I mean,
right.
So again, but I'm not in this big worldwide conspiracy that the Jews are set out to rule the world. I think Mama Rome does a good job hiding and blaming the Jews for a lot of stuff.
Oh, so. There's always going to be that goes back to the good and the bad in every crowd. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's a shame.
And speaking of Islam, Tyrell's a buddy of mine. He's in my discipleship group. We've been together about 2 years. Islamic eschatology teachers, their Mahdi, the 12th Imam, brings out the Ark. Do you expect that to be the case? I don't really have an opinion on that. I know Steve's the Ark man. He believes Judah's bringing it out, right?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, and I think that will be all the more of a reason why Islam will be upset, because what's going to happen is you're discussing, as I said, the West Bank, okay, which is where Qumran is at. It's in that disputed territory. So whenever Israel brings it out of the West Bank, which is, they're going to say their territory, this is going to be all the more that enrages them, because they're going to say the Jews stole it from them. Their imam's supposed to be doing this, and now they're doing it. It all conglomerates into a massive firestorm that there is why Jerusalem gets surrounded. So I'm with you. I've read those things. I've seen it, and I'm not saying it's not there. I'm not just throwing it to the side. What I'm saying is it will be why all the more of a reason Islam will surround Jerusalem when they have that Ark of the Covenant and they're taking over the Temple Mount.
Put up Scott Mendenhall. How does the replica of the Ark fit in with this? Scott, I mean, I wouldn't know for certain, but I don't think it's coincidence that there was a replica in our now current president's Mar-a-Lago estate for however long it was there. Again, I can't I don't believe in coincidences. So how it fits in, I believe they're sort of foreshadowing what's coming.
I have thought that exact same thing. I believe now we're going under, what would you consider, conspiracy on this element, of course. Okay. But it's almost like, speculation. It's almost like they're saying the ark will come out when he's president again, type thing. Who knows? I definitely see that as possible. Now, is that what was being said? What they're trying to make the point they're trying to say? I don't know. But personally, I've had lots of people, question me regarding the model that they've brought out. How does it play a role? I definitely don't think it's going to be used as the ark, but maybe it's just to reignite people thinking about it. I don't know. So that's really, I have more questions on that just as much as anybody else.
Well, my heart on this is not to beat up on Judah, not to beat up on Roman Catholics or the Christian church, but I do believe everything we're seeing, and this is just an example of how I believe religion and spiritual adultery, mystery Babylon. I believe that this is an example, will be almost the epitome of an example of mystery Babylon, using this ark almost like a golden calf, as you referred to earlier. And time, I believe time is getting short to come out of her.
I agree.
And so, in your experience, I mean, how many people have you seen that they were Christians, they believed in Jesus, that came into this understanding, like personally over the years, that have ended up abandoning Yeshua, denying his testimony, and then converting to Judaism?
I've seen my fair share. Yeah. And it's sad.
And again, that's my heart. We in our discipleship group, there's a man that has just kind of been going through this first 2 or 3 week interview process, and he's been giving his testimony. And he, thankfully he did not deny Yeshua, but every family that they kind of moved, they wanted to kind of go off grid. They wanted to get back to Torah. I think there were 6 families. All 5 of the men and their wives and their kids they converted to Judaism. And so, but even one person is one too many that gets deceived like that. So that's what, and I can see how this, if and when this happens, or when this happens, there will be a lot of people participating in this idolatry, and even an incense offering is equated to idolatry. So I would just ask everybody to pray about it. Maybe learn where this eschatological theological understanding even comes from. It comes from the Counter-Reformation. You've probably taught your congregation on this before. It comes from Ribera and Lacunza. And then Irving read Lacunza's work, translated into English, and him and Darby palled around. And then, then Scofield Reference Bible, and you start looking into who funded him. And I believe it's been a 500-year plan just to muddy the waters. Yeah. And again, behind the scenes of what everybody wants to lump the Jews into this worldwide conspiracy to run the world. I believe Mama is sitting over there, hiding in the wings, saying, yeah, you guys hate on them. We'll sit back here and bide our time. And because when it comes to mystery Babylon, and currently I do believe it's Jerusalem, you have the Vatican, Islam, and Judaism, the 3 world monotheistic religions, all who have a stake in Jerusalem. And it's, if that's not the mother of harlots, I don't know what is.
Well, I can see what you're saying. I think what happens is it becomes, I think currently.
Yeah, it becomes.
Yes. Yeah. I think right now, when I look at Babylon, I consider it America/United Nations. And then it's taken out of the way, and then everything is moved to Jerusalem. And that is when it is completely ruled as a UN in Jerusalem. That's what the Antichrist is going to rule from.
That again, where else would he want to take his seat and rule? If he's going to be a false anti-Messiah, he's going to want to rule from Jerusalem, to where it all started. I mean, all nations in the end gather against Jerusalem for a reason.
Right.
So, I mean, something's going on there. So, but I agree with you that right now, currently, certainly Jerusalem is not the economic power that's described in Revelation 17 and 18.
Right.
But I do believe, like you said, it is going to become the center of the entire world as these events unfold. So,
well, and if you even look at it in chapter 18, I think it is, of Revelation, where, it's the beast that the woman is riding on is who destroys the woman. Thus, the woman is, if you will, that's America, and then the beast itself takes over as the world dominates. And so that, yeah, it's all there.
So, well, you have anything else to add before we cut it off? Or
we had so much more to cover, ran out of time. But yeah, it is what it is.
We got more time if you got other verses you want to talk about.
Well, we got the whole rest of the chapter to cover, and it'd be impossible to cover it.
Oh yeah. I really wasn't trying to go through all of it. I wanted to mainly go through the abomination part, but I would like to do maybe those other verses with you, Revelation 12. Maybe finish it up on another show when you want to, when you don't want to put together a teaching and maybe just do a chat. So.
Right. That's funny. Well, the thing is, I do like to think, Isaiah 66, I'm telling you, beginning to end, it takes you from the beginning of the tribulation, even before the tribulation, actually, all the way to the second Exodus, and then into the millennium and thereafter. And so it's all there. So if you want to read it, that's the chapter to go to.
Yep. And if you're a Christian still eating your bacon, read the whole chapter and see what Yahweh Yeshua feels about it upon his return. So something as simple as what you put in your mouth, he is not very pleased. And again, I'm not beating up on you, but if you can't give up bacon, come on. Right. I mean, that should be the easiest commandment. I tell people all the time, that's really the easiest commandment to keep. Loving other people can be much, much, much more difficult.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Loving your enemies, loving those who chastise you. And, the more I do this, the more I was told today that I'm a preacher for Satan. I'm like, shalom and bless you, brother. And I did the 21st century version of foot dusting.
Right. Yeah, not long ago I was called a Pharisee because I'm not following the traditions of the fathers. I'm going, you have no idea. That's the exact what the Pharisees did,
The irony in that, I like to tell people, the irony in that statement is so dripping that it's like you can't, that you're not being mean, but it's like, no, the Pharisees made up their traditions. The early church fathers made up their traditions. Can't you see that you're the one following the Pharisee and you're the Pharisee? I want to keep it simple, stupid.
Yeah.
What does the Bible say? Like for Passover, let's, do Passover, do this in remembrance of me, sort of on the, I guess the 14th, and then gather for unleavened bread. Have you some unleavened bread, eat you some bitter herbs. You don't need broken lamb bones on your plate. You don't you don't need eggs. You don't need this elaborate, ceremony that came from Judaism. Just do Bible things, Bible ways. And if that upsets you, I do believe that is a religious spirit. If you cannot do it only the way Scripture says, I think you've elevated it to an idol.
Yeah. Interesting. Good point. Yeah.
Now, I'm not saying all traditions are bad, but if you must do the tradition, if you must have Hanukkah and light your candles, and you must, have, like a lot of people do it, like Jewish Christmas, if you have to do it, it's probably an idol to you. So, we're through that season now, thank goodness.
Right. Same here. I'm definitely not opposed to traditions, but it's just it's a matter of where the tradition's coming from. Why are you doing them? Because our family, at Passover, we do second Passover, but every second Passover, we always watch the movie, even while the children are now older. We still watch The Prince of Egypt, and we discuss it after. What did they have right? What did they have wrong? That's just a tradition we do so that we can never forget. And but I'm not opposed to traditions.
Well, but if you were like leading a congregation, telling them, "Thus saith Steve,"
oh no,
we must write it down. It's got to go into Torah family bylaws.
Yeah, not going to happen.
Torah family every second Passover gathers and watches, and thou must watch. That's what I'm talking about.
Right. Well, that's adding. That's adding to the Torah then.
Yeah. Versus, again, like certain people, my buddy Jeff, who led the congregation or the fellowship I used to be a part of, they have a tradition. They watch Fiddler on the Roof. I mean, that's a great little family tradition. I've not been able to make it past 40 minutes of Fiddler on the Roof without getting bored.
Right. That's funny.
I've seen the first 40 minutes like 10 times, and I don't even know what happens.
That's funny. Well, do we have any other questions or anything like that?
I did. I was looking. I didn't really see much as far as questions go. Let's see. Here's one. Is the ark here a different one than the one in the Tanakh? Then God's temple in heaven was open, and the ark of his covenant was seen within his temple, Revelation 11:19. I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, the Ark of the Covenant that's on earth right now is actually a copy of what's in heaven, and that's discussed in Hebrews. I think it's in chapter 8. And then, but the ark that will come out will be the one that was made under Moses with the tabernacle. It's in 2 Maccabees. It discusses how Jeremiah hid it. Okay, and then and there's so many other references you can go into it, but it will be the original when it comes out, and it will be the ultimate for the enemy when he has the original Ark of the Covenant coming out. And yeah, it's coming soon though.
Well, it'll sort of be like Israel did back in the day when they were being sinful and rebellious, not following his way, and they thought they could just parade the ark and win the battle against the Philistines. And Yah's like, nope.
Right.
You can't just use this ark as a battle symbol where I'm going to fight your battles for you if you're not following my way.
Correct. Yep.
So.
Amen.
That could be sort of that symbolism, like, and you call it the what do you call it? The idol of jealousy. In other words, they're going to idolize this object as opposed to who the object points to.
Correct.
Which is exactly,
and it's exactly with what we saw with the golden calf.
Well,
and so
Yeshua told them, and it's still true to Judaism today. Yeshua told them, everything in the Torah, everything in the prophets, everything in the writings points to me.
Yes.
And they,
go ahead.
They still can't see it. And again, my Christian brothers and sisters in the Christian church has not done a good job making them jealous.
Mm-mm.
I believe what will make them jealous is what you mentioned earlier, wearing tzitzit.
Yeah,
You being a so-called Gentile who's actually an Israelite.
Right.
Telling them, no, I'm an Israelite.
Yeah.
I'm as much of an Israelite as you ever thought about being, and I'm going to wear the tzitzit just as Yah commanded me, and I'm going to rest on Shabbat, and I'm going to not eat pork, and I believe that will make them more jealous. Maybe an anger jealousy at first, but they'll get over it.
Oh yeah, well, it goes into the element. What does the name Hebrew mean? It means crossed over. And what did Paul say? We've crossed over from death to life. The second you start walking in the ways, you're now a Hebrew, and so there's so much to be said, but I do believe that the element of the idol of jealousy, and again, I had that teaching, what is the idol of jealousy? That will be what kicks a lot of things off. And I'm telling you, the second we start trying to pursue Torah, that's going to be what ignites a lot of fire for them.
Well, for one of the ladies, I don't know if it's David or Natalie posting this, but would like to see a teaching on the cities of refuge, the Exodus. Is there one out there that you have done, Steve? Have you ever done any type of teaching on cities of refuge?
I have not. That's a good topic. I got to try to work on something like that. That'd be a good one.
Okay, because it is interesting how that might factor into this final period of time.
True. Good point.
Yeah, and you've got the Avenger of Blood. The first time Yeshua came as the kinsman redeemer. Next time he's coming as the Avenger of Blood.
Correct.
So,
yep. Amen.
So it kind of factors into that. And I think you want to be in one of those cities of refuge when you venture.
Yeah, right. Amen.
Maybe that's one of the hiding places when it says go hide yourself in the, I forget, I think it's in Isaiah. He's like, during that time of retribution, hide yourselves.
Right. Well, it's in Isaiah 26. This is hide, just close the door behind you until the indignation is past. It's like it's around verse 18, 19, 20 or something like that. Isaiah 26.
All right, man. Well, I really appreciate you joining me. I always love chatting with you. Live stream, or we actually talk the same when we're talking live stream.
Yeah, we do. I do. Amen.
So what everybody's witnessed is just a conversation, a prophecy geek conversation between Steve and I. So,
amen.
All right. Well, I'm going to end the stream now. Everybody, thanks for joining us, and y'all have a blessed evening.
Shalom.